So about 2 years ago, in February of 2022, I published the video, Can You Trust Andrew Huberman? Now, at the time of that recording, I used the best knowledge I had at the time to argue that Dr. Andrew Huberman was perhaps one of the more trustworthy podcasters in the space, at least as it relates to the integrity of his scientific research on the health and wellness space. I do want to take some time to offer some commentary and address the New York Magazine article about Andrew Huberman. And before we get into some more of the salacious stuff, I do want to address a little bit of his flakiness that was brought up in several accounts by Scott Carney in the article. I actually reached out to Andrew Huberman in March of 2022, so a month after that video came out. And so I asked him to do a sit-down interview with me discussing the impacts of neuromodulation technology on the health and wellness field and where it's going. To which he actually replied just 2 days later, and within a very extensive and excited email, he agreed to do the interview. He offered to introduce me to someone at Neuralink, and I was really excited. So I tried to nail down an interview time with him. In April, he said that he was traveling, so he would respond when he could. I then reached back out in May, didn't hear back till June. It went on, and then I finally heard back from him in July, and he asked if the interview would be at Stanford University or in San Francisco. And that was the last I heard of it. And then I proceeded to send a couple follow-up emails, and then finally I just kind of gave up. And I figured, at the time, it was the height of his podcasting career. He had really blown up. He was traveling. So I didn't think much of it until I read the article. So maybe it's a pattern. I would have really liked just a yes or no instead of just radio silence. So there's that. As for some of the personal information that, was allegedly discussed, and again, I want to believe that this was done with a sense of ethical journalism. I don't know if you know this, but I actually trained to be a journalist, and that was my first foray into kind of the media career after college. It wasn't for me, but there are a code of standards you follow. But, I think the media, as we've seen it these days, it definitely can distort or paint things a certain way. And so I just want to put that out there, that I am not saying everything in this article is fact or fiction. I don't, neither do you. We can only kind of go off of what we hope to be the accurate facts. First, let's talk about personal integrity and this idea that, someone like Andrew Huberman, who has really blown up for being someone of high scientific integrity, how does that translate into your personal integrity? One, he also has extensively talked about, trauma and therapy, and he's had Paul Conti on multiple times. He's been a big advocate of that. And so it does raise the question then, if you are promoting this, and you're encouraging your audience to potentially explore these modalities of healing, but your personal way of carrying yourself in the world isn't maybe in alignment, where does the buck fall, right? So I think as a media personality, you have to kind of expect that what you do could potentially be under scrutiny by the public, by people who look up to you. And so it just kind of raised some questions in my mind about, is he living this kind of double life? I will share a personal anecdote, and I will never talk about this again because it is not my story. But I will say that I do in fact know someone who had a relationship with Andrew Huberman before he was at Stanford. And she confided in me that at the time they were dating, there was infidelity on his end. It's hard as a woman who has also been through that with past relationships to not feel differently about the person. And so I bring it up not to say that this article is now true at face value. Again, I am only one person giving you what I heard and her experience. Again, it wasn't mine. And so I say this because to me, knowing that this has happened prior to any of the situations that were discussed in this article maybe points to the fact that this could indeed be a pattern. Even though I'm not sure we as a society should be privy to what he does behind closed doors. And I do firmly believe that, we can have professional and personal lives and they can coexist. But I think the bigger issue that I am dealing with, we put people on pedestals way too quickly in society. I mean, Andrew shot up so quickly, especially during the pandemic, as this beacon of inspiration and education and, this kind of authority figure. I can't help but think that we have done this to ourselves by making someone out to seem like they're untouchable and flawless. And I say all of this because I, too, am one of them to blame. I made a video about trusting this person, enforcing this idea that he was not only kind of this scientific leader, but also this source of moral authority. So I will fully take responsibility for that. In reality, that person is humanly flawed, just like every one of us. And so we have seen this time and time again. Maybe this is the way our society is structured, and we could get very deep into history and the way the political structure and religious structures are set up, with always someone kind of as a figurehead at the top. I'm not going to even go down the patriarchal thing at this point. I am just talking about a person, a human in general, being put up so quickly in our society's eyes and, then wanting to kind of almost tear them down just as quickly when we find out that they made a misstep, or one or two or three or multiple missteps. The point I'm trying to make here is no matter what side you believe, no matter if you read the article, you don't, or you believe everything it says, or you believe none of it, maybe it does give us time to pause and reflect and get introspective about what it is that makes us long to, emulate people in this way. Can we ever come to a place as a society where people who are in the limelight and hold some type of power aren't subject to inquisition because we never let them? Because we never hold them to such a freaking high standard that they're doomed to fail. Can we possibly get there? I hope so.